Well, what have we learned so far? We've learned there's two different kinds of nucleic acids. What are they? They are DNA and RNA. And what we have here is a picture from your book that is a representation of a DNA molecule that's very, very long. Here's a computer-generated model of DNA. And what we should glean from this picture is that, like all macromolecules, DNA has a building block. In this case, the building block is called a nucleotide. And we should see, in fact, let's go to a different version of this picture. We should see that each nucleotide, here's one right there, and here's another one over there. Each nucleotide has three major parts: phosphate group, sugar group, and nitrogenous base. Phosphate, sugar, nitrogenous base. Phosphate, sugar, nitrogenous base that are hooked together in a certain particular way. So, in this introductory unit, what we would like to do now is compare the nucleotides of DNA with the nucleotides of RNA. So here we go. Here's a picture that does it very nicely. We have a diagram here of an RNA nucleotide, another diagram over here of a DNA nucleotide, each with their three major parts: a phosphate group, a sugar, and a nitrogenous base. Phosphate, sugar, nitrogenous base. Let's first compare the phosphate groups of RNA and DNA. Here's the phosphate group of RNA. I'm circling it here. And comparing that to the phosphate group of DNA, are they the same or are they different? Well, back and forth we go, comparing atom for atom. Are they the same or different? Boy, they sure look the same to me. Yes, they are. And so there is no difference between the phosphate group of an RNA nucleotide and the phosphate group of a DNA nucleotide. What about the sugars, or the sugar group? Here is the the RNA sugar. Over here to the right we have the DNA sugar. Are they the same or different? Well, one thing you can see is different names. This one's called ribose. This one's called deoxyribose. So there must be something different, and I think we can see what it is. It's highlighted. Before we look at that, though, let's make sure we know what's missing here, 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 and here. Same thing over here to the right, here, 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 and there. And so, what is that? Well, we know it's a carbon atom. Is that right? A carbon atom. Yes. Carbon atom, carbon atom, carbon atom, carbon atom. The same over here. So, that's not a difference. The difference is what? How many atoms? How many atoms different is a sugar, a ribose sugar group, than a deoxyribose sugar group? Well, I think it's a whopping how many? One. There it is, that one little measly oxygen atom here. Ribose has it, deoxyribose does not. And so now we can see somewhat, to some extent, where the names came from. Given ribose as the name for this sugar group, this name makes sense. What is it? What is that name? It's deoxyribose. That means minus an oxygen ribose. In other words, ribose and minus an oxygen ribose. And certainly this one's the exact same thing as this one over here to the left, except it's minus one oxygen right there. So ribose sugar and deoxyribose minus an oxygen ribose. Ribose without an oxygen. So one kind of phosphate group for DNA and RNA nucleotides, a different sugar group for each one. And finally the bases. The bases, the nitrogenous bases. They're called nitrogenous bases because, wow, there's some nitrogen there. That N represents a nitrogen what? A nitrogen atom. Nitrogen atoms here as well. And so, how many nitrogenous bases are there? There happen to be a total of 5. And so, between RNA and DNA, there are a total of 5 kinds of nitrogenous bases. We'll get the names later, but you can see them right here. Here's some that RNA has, here's some that DNA have, and they're all just about the same except for one that's different. There's a total of 5 different names in these two lists. And so that concludes our introduction. Let's now go to a dry erase board presentation for a recap of what we just finished talking about.